Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Dear viewers, Assalamu alaikum. I am your host Faisal Raza and you are watching Foresight. Viewers, today the world is producing 20 times more plastic than 40 years ago. That's why out of 2.2 billion tons of solid waste, more than 390 million tons is the plastic waste. Less than only 10% is recycled. Estimated 8 to 14 million tons of the plastic ends up in oceans every year, which kill or harm at least more than 300,000 of the marine species every year. Statistics tell us that worldwide 1 million plastic bottles purchased every minute, 5 trillion plastic bags used every year, while plastic waste in aquatic ecosystem is projected to increase 23 to 37 million tons per year by 2040. Pakistan generates at least more than 30 million tons of solid waste, out of which the plastic waste accounts 3.3 million tons. Only 3% is recyclable. Unfortunately, Pakistan is the dumping ground of most of the developed world, a second largest domestic market of the plastic. Plastic waste dangerously impacting the human health, the wildlife, hampering agriculture, food security, and lots of other aspects. Due to the severity of situation, this year's Earth Day theme was envisaged as Planet versus Plastics. To reduce global plastic production to 60% by 2040 is the main objective. Rapidly phase out single-use plastic, as well as to stress every individual to push for a strong UN treaty on plastic pollution. To talk on this very important aspect of our life, we have in our studios Zainab Naeem. She is an environmentalist. Thank you very much for your presence here in the studio, Zainab. Aeysha Majid, she is also an environmentalist and working particularly on urban environment. Thank you very much for your presence here. And we have Dr. Fasiha Safdar. She is joining us online and she is expert in maritime environment. Most welcome to you, Dr. Fasiha, as well. My first question to you, Aeysha, that what are the most significant sources of plastic pollution? As according to some of the reports, as I have mentioned in my intro as well, that Pakistan generates at least 3.3 million tons of plastic waste annually, and 70% of the waste actually leads to the environmental pollution or the health risks. So how we can address, what are the sources and how we can address it?
So when we talk about the sources of plastic pollution, the first thing that we need to do is establish a baseline, because that is something that we're currently missing. We do not have data on the kind of percentage that each source of plastic has. So what we need to do is that we need to first establish proper data sets for that.
We cannot bifurcate that what kind of plastic waste is actually there.
Yeah.
Plastic waste is there,
yes,
but what kind of plastic waste?
Yes. So we need to have accurate data on the kind of sources that are producing plastic waste and the percentage that we have of each kind of plastic waste, because that is when we can form a policy around how we can utilize plastic waste in a way that does not harm the environment and that is not harmful for the health as well. So the first thing that we need to do is that we need to work on the data sets that are currently not available for Pakistan. So the stats that you mentioned, we also need to take them with a pinch of salt.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely, because these are the data which is scattered actually.
Yes.
In some UN reports might be you get something, you will get some data from UNEP, from some of the international sources, but unfortunately, so who is actually collecting that data? Is there any under the Ministry of Climate Change or any other body which is there, or provincial or federal EPAs Who is actually collecting that data?
So you rightly mentioned that the data sources, they're scattered. So EPAs are also collecting some sort of data. Then there are policy think tanks that are also working on it. We do have the UN agencies that are also working on it. But one thing that we're missing is that there is no collaborative effort to actually
there is no unified platform for that.
So to consolidate all that data, we don't have any sort of platform for that at the moment. So that is something that we really need to work on if we want to have an action plan for phasing out plastics in Pakistan.
Zainab, Pakistan's plastic pollution. So why not to save Pakistan from this menace? Because you know that some of the reports tell us that we are losing billions of dollars annually due to the plastic pollution.
Yes, I think as Aeysha mentioned, data is a problem. But again, we need to see how the industry is doing in context of plastic pollution. So the plastic producers or the plastic industry is basically the 5th largest employer in Pakistan. And they contribute almost to 8 billion PKR to the national exchequer. So I think that's because plastics are easy to handle, and that's because the consumers are, you know, they're willing to purchase plastics. And again, the waste sorting at source is missing at the moment. So we do not know exactly how much plastic is contributing towards the mainstream of waste in the country. So the figures are missing. Again, producers are not reporting data. And another issue that we are facing is we do not have recycling infrastructure. So, and the investments are lacking in the recycling infrastructure. So definitely if these are the challenges that we are facing, then how can we assess that plastic waste can be utilized as a resource, and it can definitely contribute towards the $1 billion towards the national GDP.
Yeah, definitely.
And according to the UN sources, the recent report on circular economy, they assess that almost $1 trillion of GDP can be, you know, the global economy can be boosted by implementing circular economy of plastics.
Yeah, definitely. We'll talk on circular economy as well. Dr. Fasiha, how plastic pollution actually ends up in rivers and oceans, particularly in our sea, and creating a challenge for rural and coastal communities and for aquatic or marine life as well.
Thank you, Mr. Faisal Raza for having me. First of all, I would apologize. I have a sore throat, but I'll try my best to be very clear. So you gave a very good introduction of the topic at hand today. Plastic is one of the biggest problems that the earth and the human race is facing today. And as Ms. Zainab and Ms. Aeysha also pointed out, that in Pakistan, the problem is there, but we lack the data. So throughout Pakistan, we lack the data about many aspects of environment. But when we focus on marine environment, it is an area which is mostly ignored. So since the data of pollution is specifically plastic pollution is missing throughout Pakistan, it is more evident. The data gap is more evident in the marine areas, because most of the country doesn't even know that the importance of the marine resources or the coastal resources of Pakistan. Throughout the years, because of lack of education, because of lack of awareness, the seas, the rivers, the water resources have been thought to be a dumping site. In our villages, most people don't have access to any sort of waste collection facilities. They throw their garbages around the waterways. You must have seen that in the rural areas or in the remote areas of Pakistan, in the smaller cities, most of the garbage is dumped around the water resources. So the garbage collected around the water resources, or even the garbage dumped at the garbage sites, gets washed away with rain, with the waterways, and it ultimately flows into the larger rivers and then into the seas. This is one pathway. Plastic does not only end up at the dumping sites or in the waterways, it is also released into the air. So there are many multifaceted issues or dangers of plastic pollution. So focusing on the marine environment, when the plastic ends up in the oceans, in the seas, in the largest rivers, like the Indus River, that is the largest river of Pakistan, and is home to precious biodiversity like the blue whale or the marine turtles. Both are endangered species. These are the bigger species.
All other species are also very much in a danger zone because of this plastic pollution. And you rightly mentioned about the green turtles and the blue whales and even the sea dolphins. They are all very much vulnerable because of the plastic pollution. So how actually the tiny plastic particles, basically the microplastics and the plasticosphere actually impacting and threatening our marine and riverine life, and how basically this is impacting our food chain and threatening the human life on Earth?
Yeah, so one of the main issue other than the trash issue of plastic is that plastic is non-biodegradable. So it does not break as natural resources break down and mix into the natural earth or the soil. It accumulates, and over time it is broken down into smaller and smaller particles. The small particles cannot be seen by the naked eye. They're known as microplastics or the nanoparticles. So these plastic particles are mixed into the water. The small organisms, the shrimps and the small fish, they take them up, they ingest them, and it is present in the body. Then they travel into the food chain and ultimately reach the humans. When the microplastics reach the humans, the recent research has proved that they can even cross the blood-brain barrier. They are accumulated in our almost all the organs of the human body. They can have drastic health effects. They can cause kidney issues. And in recent years, there is a report by earthorganization.com which focused on the health effects of microplastics on babies. They saw that they were.
Dr. Fasiha, when we are talking about the marine life, what are the ultimate impacts on the seafood, particularly when we have, because we have seen over the years the decline in the seafood, particularly in Pakistan's case, the shrimps, the fish and lobsters and all others. So it means that we are also getting effects on our economy, because seafood is one of the great exports from Pakistan.
Yes, so this is plastic pollution is one of the threats that our marine biodiversity is facing. So you must have heard many cases of our turtles being found dead on the beaches. So the sea marine fish or the marine species, they mistake the plastics as food. They ingest them, their intestines get blocked, they can die from plastic ingestion. So it is a big threat to marine turtles and other species. Besides that, the whole ecosystem is destroyed. The pollution destroys the food resources, the oxygen capacity of the water is dirty, and the fish species, the turtles, the lobsters, the shrimps, they don't get the healthy ecosystem they need to thrive. So plastic pollution is one of the causes that is causing a huge economic loss ultimately to Pakistan as well.
So your point well taken. Thank you. Aeysha, you were mentioning about like in urban centers particularly, and now we are feeling the heat in small towns and villages, as Dr. Fasiha also rightly mentioned, and earlier Zainab also. Do you think that inadequate waste management system like collection and disposal in urban and rural areas creating actually the plastic waste crisis in Pakistan?
So the plastic crisis, it is basically a symptom of the larger waste issue that we have, which is of the linear model of take, make and dispose model. So what we're doing is that we're just utilizing sources once and then discarding them. So that is one of the major issues that we're facing.
What we actually do in the linear economy.
Yeah, the linear economy, and like Zainab mentioned, we need to close the loop and we need to introduce circular solutions within the urban areas as well as in the rural areas as well. For that, waste management, yes, that is a big issue, because even if we do segregate at source, currently we do not have mass solutions that can somehow recycle plastic or even other kinds of waste, upscale and downscale all of the kind of waste that we're producing. So what we need to do is that we need to come up with a holistic approach, and we need to have different sorts of solution for different kinds of waste, which can actually help us solve all of this issue that we're currently facing.
Okay, okay. Yeah. And Zainab, when we are talking about the circular economy, how much it is important that we should just boost it up, because we have seen the linear economy's worst effects on our country. And secondly, we have lots of effective laws and legislations, but whether we have the enforcement mechanisms available along with that to check the spread of the plastic pollution overall?
So, linear economic model is not sustainable for our country, and we have seen the effects of how climate crisis is also affecting Pakistan, how it is affecting in context of losses in the GDP that have been incurred as a result of the floods. And also one of the contributing factors towards floods is the plastics,
definitely,
the single-use plastics, the waste that chokes the waterways. So that's again one of the crises, and we need to convert towards circular economy model eventually, and especially in context to your second question. Well, I think we have had a few regulations, not just at federal level but also at provincial level. And again, National Assembly, they also passed a resolution to ban single-use plastics. So we have had single-use plastic prohibition laws or regulations in Islamabad, in Punjab, in Sindh, Balochistan, and even Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. But the issue is not only enforcement, the issue is the unavailability of eco-friendly alternatives, and the lack of consumer awareness that why you shouldn't be using plastics, and these are the alternatives available that you should be using. So in that context, even if we come up with extremely sophisticated regulations, enforcement will remain a challenge, because consumers will not be able to convert towards eco-friendly alternatives if they're not available.
So what is the producer's responsibility in addressing this plastic pollution? Because how can the companies, industries, even households, every single individual in the public sector entities even be held responsible and accountable for the plastic waste generation by their products, or whatever is actually the detrimental actions even? So how we are going to get them accountable?
So according to the Pakistan Plastic Manufacturers Association, every Pakistani uses 5.5 kilograms of single-use plastics, and almost the level of plastic waste that is being imported in Pakistan, that's again different, that's again aggravating the situation. So in context of extended producer responsibility, the EPR mechanism, I think first of all the producers, the private sector organizations, and even the public sector organizations who are producing plastics, they have a responsibility to start reporting data. But that's in ideal situation when we have national waste sorting policies available, when we have the recycling infrastructure available. But in the absence of investments and in the absence of these kind of initiatives, I think producers will not be willing to produce data on how much they are producing.
Definitely, very important point.
So really, we need to ensure just transition as well.
Obviously. Aeysha, at the federal and provincial level, the governments, organizations, the private sector from which you also belong, individuals, how can they play their role in combating this plastic pollution?
So the first thing that we need to do is that we need to change the mental models around waste, and plastic waste in particular. So the waste is not just the responsibility of the governments.
Obviously, it's the individual responsibility as well.
Yes, so we need to internalize the concept of my waste, my responsibility. That is something that we need to do, and for that we will have to change the mental models around it. So for example, we say that plastic is cheap to produce, plastic is convenient for use. However, if we actually see the kind of health impacts that it has and the kind of environmental impacts that it has, it costs goes up significally.
Definitely.
So if we are suffering because of the plastic pollution or because of microplastic particles, the health cost goes up significantly high. So that is not something that we're mentioning when we're talking about plastic pollution. So we need to change the narrative around plastic. We need to stop saying that it's very convenient. We need to tell people that, this is the kind of impact that it has. We need to educate.
Definitely, it is going to be dangerous for the human health, and everyone one must have to adhere it, and they have to take it their responsibility, obviously. So you are absolutely right. Dr. Fasiha, when we are talking about the ocean plastic waste, so what could be the effective strategy to address this important area, particularly the ocean plastic waste? How to tackle it, especially in the context of Pakistan?
Okay, so the 90% of the marine pollution stems from land. So the ultimate solution rests on land. So in my view, as Ms. Aisha also said, that the narrative needs to change and awareness is one of the main thing that needs to be focused on. There can be legislations as we have seen in Pakistan. There have been very good legislations, but the implementation mechanism is a bit weak. Plus, there should be a social or a public support to a policy to make it effective. So the kind of awareness that we need in this case, it's huge. Like the people now know in certain cases, like they have to boycott a certain product to support a certain thought process. There is so much information online nowadays. We need that sort of promotion in this case as well. The people need to understand that it's not too difficult to shift back to basics from where we have come. We have been using land, we have been using the sustainable resources like the paper bags, the cloth bags. We just have to turn back.
We were using the cotton bags, we were using particularly for stainless steel buckets for the liquids in our past. So why not we just go towards the sustainable solutions what we were actually experiencing in our past?
Yes, actually the plastic industry has made us believe that it is very important and it cannot be replaced. But in reality, it can be replaced very easily. It's just a process that needs to be reinforced again because the media, the whole media and the advertisement and the plastic industry had made us believe that we rely on it. But actually, when we try to shift back to the basics, everything is in the hands of the consumer.
You're absolutely right, because it might be very handy to have a bottle of water in our hand, the plastic bottle, and just use it. So why not to go first towards the health implications of the plastic waste particularly, and why not to focus on human health in that perspective, because we have seen over the years that this is a psychology of the human, that when it comes to his or her health, they are taking it very seriously.
Yes, that is a good point, because the other thing that has been always talked about when we talk about plastics is the pollution problem or the garbage problem. We always try to find a solution to plastic pollution in the form of recycling. So that is effective, but the focus should shift from the garbage problem to health implications. So there have been studies in Pakistan that the microplastics have been found in individuals, in kidneys, in the soft body tissues, in the brain. So we know that the microplastics or the nanoplastics, they can cross the blood barrier and they can accumulate in your body organs. So when
now,
we try
unfortunately, into the newborn babies as well, your point well taken, Zainab. When we are talking about the innovative solutions, the technology, the new gadgets, exploring natural solutions, like we have heard in past that plastic eating fungi and promoting biodegradable bags to tackle plastic pollution, but this needs some sort of a consistency. Once some sort of action taken, or some sort of a production starts, or any sort of a legislation, but then it's again go behind the curtain and we don't know what's happening actually. So how do you see the consistency and sustainability of any policy or action?
So I think I'll share a few interventions or initiatives that are actually happening in Pakistan. But the question that you raise, how can we ensure consistency? So the problem is that although academia is involved in research, but academia is not connected with the industry, and then there's a gap between industry, public sector and academia, government, industry and academia. So the gap is still existing. So in context of innovative solutions, well, in Pakistan we do have very good startups who are not only engaged in plastic collection, recycling, but also in plastic upcycling, you know, converting plastic into something that can be used more effectively. efficiently. For example, there are startups who are converting, mixing low-grade plastic material that is not even being picked up by the regular waste pickers, and they convert it into construction material, you know, making eco-friendly bricks. Then we have startups who are collecting plastic waste and converting it into furniture that can be placed in public spaces.
Yeah,
you know?
definitely. Why not?
But the issue is their scalability, and the issue, another issue is that they are not being, because of lack of investments, lack of capital, so their solutions are not scalable. You know, they are scalable, but they're not scaled by the public or private sector. Again, the priorities by both public and private sector have to be aligned with, you know, international commitments as well.
Obviously.
So if we need to ensure the monitoring of plastic waste, and then we need to ensure that the existing waste management system, the capacities are built for ensuring efficient plastic waste sorting and plastic waste collection, and then utilizing plastic waste as a resource. So again, international best practices are there, and they are not something that are happening in developed countries only. Even in our neighboring countries, some innovative solutions have been adopted, and they have established really good plastic waste management systems that is also supporting the private sector and also the startups and SMEs who are engaged efficiently for this purpose.
Definitely. And Aeysha, as Zainab rightly pointed out, how does plastic pollution actually intersect with our different other environmental issues like climate change, and how to address these connections particularly, because ultimately these connections are creating more problems and havocs for the nation?
So I'll build up on what Dr. Saiba mentioned. Plastic problem is not just a trash problem. It is also it is also a climate change problem, because 90%, more than 90% of the plastic is being produced by fossil fuels.
Obviously.
So it is also creating the greenhouse gas emissions, which are ultimately leading to the climate problem. So when we talk about,
ultimately in case of burning as well, you are producing the greenhouse gases actually.
So basically, it is not just a trash problem, it is also a climate change problem. So this is why I mentioned that in addition to recycling and in addition to introducing such solutions, we also need to come up with alternatives to plastic. We need to find ways, or we need to find materials that can replace plastic. And this is not just a challenge, this is also an opportunity for our market, because like Zainab mentioned, there is a lot of research that is being done in our universities. We need to connect that research to the industry and scale up those solutions in order to bring the sustainability and circular economy within our communities. That is something that we really need to do, and finding alternatives to plastic is something that is significant in actually phasing this material out by 2030 or by 2050 even.
So Pakistan is actually suffering a lot because of the economic condition, because of the social unrest, or the health-wise, like health problems and health issues. We have lots of health issues due to environmental and marine degradation. So resultantly, the whole of the country actually incur lots of financial losses and healthcare expenses as well on the other side. Why we are not much focusing on complete elimination of the plastic waste, or having the habit of recycling such kind of waste?
So like I said, there are things that are being done, but they're very disconnected, which is why we're unable to form a comprehensive narrative around it. Okay. What we need to do is that we need to highlight the good practices that are actually occurring within Pakistan. What that will do is that it will encourage other people to step in as well and bring out the kind of innovation and the kind of solutions that are required. Young people can play an immense role in that, because we do know that we're suffering from unemployment as well. So when you can suggest, or when you can pitch such ideas to young people, they can come up with models that will work. So experimentation is the key to actually eliminating this problem, and experimentation is also the key to introducing circular solutions within community. That is where we need to involve our universities, where we need to involve our young people to actually come up with innovative solutions to this problem that we're facing.
Okay. Zainab, when we are talking about, some of the reports suggest that Pakistan, 85% of the plastic waste actually go untreated, and we only utilize at least 15%, about US dollar 144 million. So in fact can generate, it is again an estimate, it is not an authentic figure, but estimatedly we can generate at least $1.2 billion of annually through utilizing, recycling the plastic waste, can generate thousands of jobs and businesses around this whole, what you are calling the circular economy. So how do you see this? Do you think that this is going to be possible in a country which is already under a turmoil, the financial economic turmoil? We have to focus on such things, not only to save national exchequer, but also to create something for our people and population as well.
So let me be very honest with you. First thing is that we cannot eliminate plastics completely. That's why even internationally it has been discussed that reducing plastic pollution, because we do realize the fact that plastics are here and they're going to stay with us forever. So, but again the focus should be on how the waste can be minimized or reduced. Now in context of plastics waste management, you mentioned that, you know, and you rightly pointed this out, that Pakistan's plastic is largely mismanaged, and again the recycling potential that we have is around 14 to 18%, but only 8% is actually being recycled.
Definitely.
And the problem is again lack of infrastructure and lack of financial resources. But of course we can definitely utilize it as one of the key resources for inviting investments in the sector, and but for that we need to align the private sector engagement as well, because private sector is a sector that is bringing investments to your country. So if you are coming up with any regulations and if private sector is not aligned, that's going to create problems. And again, as I mentioned earlier, another important intervention that is very much supportive of, you know, managing plastic waste is the Living Indus initiative by the government of Pakistan, the Ministry of Climate Change and United Nations, that the intervention around zero plastic waste cities, managing the plastic waste in urban areas, I think that is going to be the key for inviting investments and for setting the priorities right for improving plastic waste as a resource situation in the country.
Definitely, you are absolutely right. Dr. Fasiha, when we are talking about having education and awareness among the people, effectively actually inspire the behavior change and drive actions against the plastic pollution, think tanks like National Institute of Maritime Affairs, from which you belong actually, and academia along with the civil society, media and all others, they can play a pivotal role in that. So how that could be started, and not in a segregated position, but also we have to unite ourselves at the single platform and then start some sort of a campaigning. Do you agree with it?
Yes, I do agree with you. There are many smaller initiatives that are happening in the country. Many people are doing great work. I would give an example that we did NEMA, National Institute of Maritime Affairs Day with Bahria University. They took an initiative on the Environment Day last year, and they have banned the use of single-use plastics in their office premises and the Bahria University campus in Islamabad as well. So you don't see any single-use or branded water bottle or plastic bottles in the campus. In our office now, we use glass bottles, we reuse them, and we minimize the use of any sort of plastic that we use once and throw it away. So I would also like to build up on the ideas given by the other participants. Like one participant said that the plastic is here to stay. One of the thing that can be done is a complete ban on the single-use plastic. So the circular economy can involve plastic, because plastic has been incorporated into the economic system very strongly. But the single-use plastic can be eliminated, and all other types of plastics, they can circulate in the economy. So it has a lot of advantages that should be highlighted to motivate the private sector as well to participate in it. So according to a UN's report, a shift to a circular economy can reduce the volume of plastic waste, of course, but it would also save governments $70 billion by 2040, and it can reduce the greenhouse gas emissions by 25%. But the most important thing is it can create 700,000 additional jobs, mostly in the economic south, global south, that are the countries that need this economic boost and the human resources utilization very badly. So this should be taken as an opportunity as well as a challenge, that we have to shift to a circular economy and find alternatives and find ways to circulate the plastic in the economy, to create more jobs, to find better solutions, and to clean up better. Of course, as an end result, it would ultimately result in a better and cleaner environment as well.
Definitely,
So the awareness...
Aeysha, when we are talking about, as Dr. Fasiha rightly pointed out, and Zainab also pointed out, that there needed investments into the recycling infrastructure. There must be a recycling infrastructure, but along with that, there must be the investment from either the local or the foreign direct investment into the industry. So, do you think that we have some effective policies, available incentives and tax benefits for those who actually utilize plastic for the common good, recycle it and benefit people rather than harm them and the nature? So, this is very important. So, do you think so that such mechanisms are available?
So, in addition to investments, I think what we're missing is skills. We need the kind of skills that will transfer or that will transform plastic into, you know, in a just way, into substances that are not harmful for the environment and even the economy is economically as well. Because if we take on transitions that are not just, then we're missing out on a lot of the community members that are actually working or that are associated with this industry at the moment.
Obviously.
So what we need to do is we need to build the skills of people to actually handle waste in a sustainable manner, and plastic waste particularly, and that brings in everything, the economy, health, etc. So that is something that we need to do. As far as tax benefits are concerned, yes, we do need to have a comprehensive policy around it. We do need to have a just policy where we take on board all the private sector and the plastic industry as well. So their input is very important when it comes to it as well. We need to have proper stakeholder engagement with them and then come up with policies instead of just introducing policies and trying to enforce them, because then we can expect some reaction out of it as well.
Obviously,
because when we have ownership of those stakeholders, then we can implement it in a way that will be sustainable and that will be just as well. In addition to it, we need to focus on building skills of our people to actually learn how to handle waste in a sustainable manner. That is something that we really need to focus on at the moment.
Your point well taken. Zainab, how does the international best practices and the partnerships can contribute effectively addressing the plastic pollution in Pakistan, and just like the global plastic action partnership? So such kind of partnerships, do you think that can benefit Pakistan to get at least out of plastic waste?
Yes, I think that's the GPAP, as you mentioned, is something that's very promising initiative, and you know that that can provide the country with the investments that are required for managing the plastic waste. But apart from that, I think the local investments also needs to be mobilized in context of best practices. So as I mentioned earlier, in developing countries, if we see in the Asian region, like Thailand has introduced, even they are now working on introducing plastic credits, you know, that can mobilize more incentives. Again, the tax breaks and their mechanism is so good that they have involved in establishing resource recovery centers within different communities. So the communities are being made responsible to you know, take care of the plastic waste. And then again in Pakistan, as my colleagues also mentioned, that waste should not be the responsibility of government only, but as of now government says that waste belongs to the government, right? So in that perspective, I think again private sector CSOs and government, they should come up with a strategy involving the civil society, how they can, you know, help in sorting plastic waste. So the waste that is a resource, the government, you know, they can take up that resource and then they can engage with the private sector to establish a well efficient circular economy. And again with GPAP, we had World Economic Forum involved as well. So I think after GPAP, we were supposed to develop national plastic action partnerships as well. So the government is working on it, and even the provincial governments are aligned, and they will be coming up with something.
So it means that it's a good news that at least the government is cognizant of the fact that we are suffering from a very important and a grave threat to the public health.
So that's why living in this, exactly, that's why living in this intervention is very much relevant.
That is linked with that initiative actually. So this question is to you all three, that do you think a comprehensive, strong, enforceable and legally binding global plastic treaty is inevitable to support developing countries like Pakistan to achieve sustainable development goals? Because right now we have just yesterday there was an initiative taken by Canada, and the negotiations are going on over there, but the countries are actually largely divided on the treaty and its contours. So how do you see that? So how much it is important, the global plastic treaty?
So, as you mentioned, International Negotiations Committee 4th session is happening in Canada. That's being headed by United Nations Environment Programme. So, just yesterday, there was this plenary session on how we are going to work on a legally binding instrument for reducing plastic pollution. But the Executive Director of UNEP, Ms. Inger Anderson, she mentioned that, you know, we need to come up with a strategy to refuse, reuse, reduce and redesign. That's essentially circular economy, the plastic waste. But again, we need to ensure just transition, paving a way for private sector to thrive as well.
Yes, definitely.
And so that's one of the key.
We are not going to snatch the jobs and the employments and the businesses of the private sector.
So that's one of the key essential elements for the treaty, and that's why the countries are divided, because the private sector is, you know, they are scared of it, that, you know.
Absolutely. If Aeysha, quickly, if you just briefly tell us about the global plastic treaty.
So in addition to bans that we talk about, what we need to do is we need to incentivize people to take productive action. That is how we can encourage everyone to, you know, eliminate the problem.
Obviously.
So by encouraging or by giving tax benefits to the industry to actually come up with sustainable solutions, that is something that will work, and that is how we will take them on board to actually comply with all of these things that we want them to actually, you know, put in practice.
Obviously, you are absolutely right. Dr. Fasiha, if you just add into that how much a global plastic treaty is inevitable for the human beings globally.
Yes, so in my view, this is a very welcome step. In 2022, the countries in the UN Environment Assembly, they agreed on a resolution to end plastic pollution and towards an internationally legally binding instrument. The term legally binding instrument is very important in my view, because when you have an international legally binding instrument, you are bound to take action on a problem. So like we heard, the Paris Agreement and the nationally determined contributions and the fight against global warming is fully it's happening on an international scale. Similar efforts are needed to end plastic pollution as well. So I think this legally binding treaty.
Thank you very much. We have run short of time. Thank you very much for your participation and presence online. Thank you very much for candid views. Thank you very much, Zainab, for being here in the studios. Thank you very much, Aeysha, for being here. So nice of you. Viewers, different reports, particularly the United Nations, when they are actually foreseeing the future regarding the plastic waste. Year 2024 alone, surge plastic waste to whooping 220 million tons globally. So the estimated rise is actually 10% this year from 7.11% in 2021. So if we want to have clean and green environment, blue oceans, shiny rivers, beautiful mountains and green meadows, clean valleys and villages, fresh seafood, agriculture, to have good health and the food security intact, we have to discourage the use of actually polyethylene or the plastic bags, plastic crockery and all other items we can not only get rid of from our households, but also we can use some of the past practices in daily life. Government and private sector join hands to produce, and people have to use environment friendly biodegradable cotton or paper bags and all others. And our panelists also suggested that the gap is still existing in academia, industry and government linkages. Mental horizon and the narratives must have to be changed. Monitoring of the plastic waste and the data collection is very important. Circular economy is important, and we have to get rid of or we have to go at least away from the linear economy, because that is not the solution right now. We must focus on recycling infrastructure. Single-use plastic must have to be, and skills are needed to have recycling infrastructure. Tax incentives, breaks along with the plastic credits must have to be introduced, legally binding agreement, legally binding initiative regarding the global plastic treaty is a must. This is all from today's Foresight. It's time to sign off. Allah Hafiz.